Lisa Meyer, and she is a grade 2 teacher at Ellendale in Surrey. And we thought it would be really great to get her perspective on what's happening with this COVID-19 crisis that's amongst us. And she teaches with the public school. And so we have a bunch of questions like, Lisa, when you found out, when you found out the schools were going to possibly shut down after spring break, what was your first reaction?
I mean, we had a hunch, but there was no official announcement because we were heading into spring break. So the Thursday before spring break, sorry, the Thursday, no, it was the Friday. People were still having conversations on staff about whether or not they were taking their trips.
Right.
And then that afternoon, I think Ontario closed their schools indefinitely. And so we kind of had this, there was an announcement made at the end of the day on Friday, take your technology home. And that was it. And they were doing a thorough clean of the school. So my planner message said, so happy to see you all back. Like, welcome back. I did the shape of the day. I was totally preparing to come back after spring break. But in the back of my mind, I had a hunch. And then it was, I think, like that weekend, the Saturday or the Sunday, where they announced, we're all in the news, right, that it was going to be closed. BC schools were closed indefinitely. And so I think because we were on spring break, you know, my initial thoughts were like, okay, oh my God, my kids are home now with me indefinitely. And then you're dealing with that, the process of them getting used to that. And it was like one thing at a time. First it was school. And they thought about that was kind of cool, not having to go back after spring break. And then over the course of a few hours, which turned into a few days, they start realizing that their sports are canceled, their dances are canceled, their grade 7 celebrations canceled. You know, my older daughter's in Trek, that's canceled. So over spring break, I was thinking more about how it was going to impact my own kids. Then towards the end of spring break, because you had a few emails from the superintendent and from our principal, but not a lot, it started to hit that all of a sudden our jobs have completely done a 180, right? Because it's not a technology-driven job teaching elementary school. There's aspects of it which I love learning about, but I'm a lot older than a lot of the staff, and the younger ones are better at it. So as soon as we got closer to the startup of school, it felt like almost like the first day of school again, because it was so different. It was so different. And then you start thinking about, you know, your students and their families and their needs and how are they doing.
So you teach in Surrey. So what, and the Surrey School Board is a really vast school board. And has like a full spectrum of, you know, needs.
Yeah.
And so what kind of communication were you getting from administration? And then how was your mind shifting?
Like, just to like everybody slow down and not panic. Mm-hmm. And that the message is that first and foremost, like at the top of the tier, are the staff, the students, the families' health and safety and wellness. Nothing can happen unless we are all feeling, and including families, safe, healthy, and well. And then after that, it was the first week rollout was all about connecting and communicating. So we made phone calls, and it was like the first time I talked to all of the students on the phone, just to make that initial connection to say, how are you doing? They sounded like they were about 3 years old when you talk to them on the phone. Right. And they're in their own home setting, they're just younger than they are when they come to school, and you kind of get them to have to like pull up their socks and let's get to work and stay, you know. So the first thing was just to make sure everybody was safe and how are they doing, connecting with the families. A big piece of it is finding out what people need as far as, well, first of all, you know, like there's kids that we feed at school. And it's not just our school, but I'm talking about like as a teacher, and you think about all of the kids in your district or in your city that actually rely on school for food. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers to this. And so you have to make sure that people are still getting their food, still getting their needs met, that the basic needs that they're getting met, that we're getting met at school now, and now they're at home, and we need to find out how they're doing. Are they okay?
So are you saying like the school extended a hot lunch program? Like,
yeah, run it home for you.
Amazing.
Yeah, so there's that piece. There's that, wellness piece. And then there's also, how are we getting kids to communicate with us if the only device in the house is one cell phone?
Right.
Two or
yeah,
three
because not everybody has technology at their house.
No, not everybody has access to the internet. So there's lots of layers, and the message that we got from admin, from the district and from our admin, is just take it really, really slow and be really mindful of what you're rolling out and how you're rolling it out. This is not a continuation of where the kids left off. This is a best case scenario to addressing a global pandemic crisis. And the message I would hope from families is that to put in place whatever you can for your own kids. And then, the after piece is what the teachers and the schools are able to provide as far as best case scenario learning opportunities.
Right.
I'm speaking from an elementary school perspective, so I know it's different for kids who are graduating. But this is not a continuation of the rest of this year. This is a whole new situation. Mm-hmm. And it's very stressful for families right now.
Oh, I can't.
We have to be mindful of what's happening in those houses when we send out that email that says, here's the great things you're going to do with your kids today.
Right.
If you aren't like feeding them and working from your own home, and if you have technology, and if you don't have like another adult in the house or two working from home, or somebody who actually is really sick, like there's a lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm. The spectrum of parents must be everything from grateful to high maintenance. Would that be accurate?
I don't know, but we have very grateful.
That's great.
We have very grateful where we are.
And then what has been the best experience in these first few weeks of doing this type of schooling?
Definitely when you got to talk to the families on the phone and say, like, how are you? How's it going? And just to get a little insight into what's happening in their house and with their own kids. Because we miss them and they miss us. Mm-hmm. Little videos are being sent from students like, hi, Mrs. Meyer, I miss you. And then, on the professional side of things, we've been experimenting with different ways of like holding staff meetings like this through Teams. And so for a lot of us, there's a steep learning curve, which I think will translate down the road into, better practices. So there is that, there's positive to come out of it too. But the message to our families is like, we're not adding stress, we're adding value. And if anything that we are asking or sending home is adding stress, then you need to let us know and you need to not worry about it. Mm-hmm. Because some people are dealing with very basic, stresses, and they're talking about losing jobs.
I've already lost a job.
Having lost a job, so everybody's at home, and it's just a really tough place it's a lot to expect, that families will try to do everything you ask of them. But then you do get families who are also like, oh, we want to do this, and when can we start this? And that's easy too. We can work with that.
Do you think it's early stages, but any efficiencies in the end that will be incorporated into the new education when we're all back in school that you're starting to see from this?
I think so. I've done this for so long that I think that the technology, because we're so busy as teachers, I know a lot of my colleagues, and myself included, you know, we are workaholics. It's a really hard job to take yourself away from. And so there's hoping that there'll be some more efficiencies around the use of technology, because we do use it in the classroom, but it's not always as meaningful or as purposeful as I would like it. And I think there's going to be a greater sense of community coming out of it within schools. You know, we get on these meetings, like I've had 2 already today with staff, and we're so excited to see each other. We're so excited to hear from each other. We're just feeling so much love for each other right now, because we're all, and I think that goes for all neighborhoods and all, you know, it's a totally different, new, unexpected reality. And now we're having to adjust and just be really supportive of everybody's roles. And so I think there'll be like a greater sense of sort of community within schools coming out of this. It's kind of leveled the playing field.
You seem like an awesome grade 2 teacher.
I know. She's amazing.
You know what? It's a great job. It's such a good gig. Hey, you need to be it.
I know. I miss all those elements, and like you said, it's always on. So your final question is, we've been asking everyone, there's a silver lining in every crisis. And so for you, what's the silver lining in this one?
So, you know what? I think there's a couple silver linings, but personally, once my own kids got over the loss, like there's, you know, I think that our kids we have to allow them to process what's happened in their lives, my own kids, but also the kids that I teach. And I think that we shouldn't overlook the fact that there's a big, huge loss here, and that they should be allowed to grieve the loss of, maybe it's their grad or their year end, like they've danced all year long. They have their costumes. They don't get to put them on. It's done. It's over. Mm-hmm. You know, the year end trips, all of those things, I think that kids have to learn to get through. So there's that piece of emotional growth that can happen. I am enjoying that. Once my kids got over that, I'm enjoying the lack of stress that my own 2, for example, are experiencing. Like there's nowhere to be. There's nowhere to nag them to go. They're not rushing. They're like chilled out and happy. And I think it's actually a really interesting experiment in like teen mental health, because when in your life do you ever get this break from stress and activities and that you know, all of that goes on in high schools with kids?
Yeah. No,
and I think it's going to be interesting to see how kids, after, let's face it, it's going to be a couple months at least, right? Mm-hmm. How they come out of it, and if any of the things that they are experiencing now at home, as in the downtime, the family time, the baking, the walking for a couple hours a day just because there's nothing else to do, how that might impact their well-being down the road.
Mm-hmm. I've been so grateful, realizing my kids like each other.
Yeah.
They want to hang out. Thank God.
Yeah. And they're just doing they have to find different things to do.
Like we did when we were kids.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then professionally, I think that there's just a greater appreciation for the people that you work with. There's a more reliance on, like, I rely on people, maybe like the grade 7 teacher who's really, he's very technologically savvy. So we're sharing all this information. And just getting to know the families a little bit more intimately, because we're picking up the phone or we're video chatting, like we're getting a look into their world. I mean, it's not that simple because there's lots of privacy issues around that. Yeah. There's a lot of layers to rolling out, like it's rolling out education this way without any notice at all.